Welcome back to another episode of the Tim Macy Show. And today, excited to have Colton Lindsay on. Colton, what's happening, man?
What's happening, Carol Baskins? How are you?
Oh, man.
When you say what's happening, I'm not going to go, what's happening, Carol Baskins?
Man, Tiger King. Is that where we should take the show? Should we start talking about Tiger King?
Oh, no. I hated that show. I couldn't get past the first season.
What a moment in time. I remember when 2020 hit, when COVID hit, we had this Disney World trip planned, and obviously that got canceled. And I put my daughter in the laundry basket and stacked it on a tower of pillows. We watched the Disney World rides on YouTube and put her close to the screen and shook the basket like she was on the rides. And that, I don't know, that's my COVID memory. You got a COVID memory?
Dude, I got lots of COVID memories. Shoot, that's when I really started dating my spouse. Well, we'd met 2019, but then quickly into it, COVID happened, and it was weird because when you're dating someone like at the early stages and you can't really go out anywhere, it's interesting. So we ended up just making lots of dinners at each other's houses. So
yeah, it's cheaper too.
Definitely cheaper, especially when she made it.
All you in the dating realm, take note. Have make meals. Don't go out for them.
Do you remember 2020 when you weren't as rich as you are now?
Yeah, I do. It was definitely a financially different time for us. My house had a $20,000 foundation issue. We were getting fixed. And that house was like a $115,000 house. So we probably put like 50 grand into. It was kind of like our living, house hack type thing. And yeah, man. But it's funny you say that because I gotta say, like, I don't look back at that time like. If you let me go back to that, I would go back to it in a heartbeat. Like it was such a great time. My daughter was younger and we were super happy. So it is funny how like the financial success lives in our mind so much of like, that's what drives us. But when I look back at the times when I didn't have it, I'm like, man, it was still some great times, And so many times I think we're constantly thinking about like, oh, when I get there, it'll be great. When in actuality it's probably pretty great right now,
Yeah, it really is. That's part of, that song by Macklemore, The Good Old Days. That's exactly what I wish someone would have told me. These are the good old days. Because we always look back at the good old days, but right now is the new good old days.
Man, I do that all the time. Like I'm out doing all these trips, going to do all these events, going to do all this stuff, and it gets tired. And like I get tired, and I have things in my life that I could complain about. Like I do. Like I'm away from my family all the time. I miss my daughter's thing. And like, why am I out here? Is this all worth it? And like, I could go down that road. Instead, I make sure, like the Macklemore song, like I know I'm going to look back and look back fondly on being out with our people, right? And like being at these things and like just being together and doing these things we're doing. So I really do try to take those moments to acknowledge the fact that these are the good old days. And that's hopefully that's the way you live your life, right? Like we all have different seasons, we all have different chapters, but hopefully every chapter we're in is one that we can find the parts that are great about it that we know we're going to look back on with gratitude.
Yeah, I think so. I think gratitude has to be a consistent practice. And 2023 could be a challenge to be grateful. Right? When it's a hard year for a lot of people, but that's part of those seasons you talk about. And it's those hard seasons that polish us up.
So let's dig in, man. You've been in real estate for a while.
Yeah, I have.
You're about to be the guy that's been in the business 20 years, right? You're not too far off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as you hit it, like anybody that calls you, are you going to tell them, be like, I've been in the business 20 years.
I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been selling real estate since before you were born.
Yeah. Is that going to happen or no?
No, probably not.
Probably not. But look, let's go back a little bit. Like, tell me, what's your most memorable transaction you had, like when you were first getting started? And when I ask you this, I want a couple of things. One, I want to know how you found the deal, and I want to know how it went.
Well, I got a lot of memorable ones. I think one of my favorites was my very first listing.
Yeah.
And it was on this street called F Avenue. And that might not mean anything to anyone here, but F Avenue is probably like the dirtiest street in West Ogden. And I remember how I got it was I started with Century 21. and they
Like a
had,
baller,
yeah, like a ball,
you
and I had
know?
a gold coat, everything.
Well,
But back then they had a thing called floor time. And I wasn't even on the floor time, but I would sit while other people were on floor time and see if they'd missed the leads. And there was one particular one that this guy answered, took down the number, and he threw it in the trash. And I went and got it. And I asked him, like, dude, why you throw this lead away? He's like, I was like, can I have it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's some house they want to sell on F Avenue. I don't want to deal with it. And I was like, I'll do it. I'm going to do it. He's like, yeah, whatever, do it. So I called it up and I listed the house. It was $45,000 listing. And I listed it at 10%. I was like, dude, I'm gonna go big on it. I listed 10%. I offered 3%, kept 7. And then like 2 days, I got a cash offer. So I sold it for 45 grand, double-sided it, cash offer, got a 10% commission, closed it. And then like 2 weeks after close, the guy comes like, dude, you gonna pay me a referral fee? I was like, bro, you threw that thing in the trash. Like you weren't even gonna do anything with it. Anyways, so I didn't pay him a
dude,
referral.
I love that story. That's amazing. I think that so many times we get into this industry and we want the glitz and the glam, but dude, when you're a new agent, you got to take whatever the hell you could get. And it's funny you said that $45,000 house. The first deal I did was a $40,000 house, and I embraced the fact that I started selling hoarder houses and just the nastiest, dirtiest stuff that nobody else wanted to touch. Like, who cares? You're a new agent, right?
Yeah.
Take whatever you can get.
What blows my mind is that house actually had one of the rooms was a dirt floor, and I was like, I didn't even know people actually live like this in Utah, right? It's like because I never experienced
Yes.
that personally,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was my first deal. And, it was
You know, I have this infatuation, Colton, and I love your take on it. I love talking to new agents, which I know is kind of funny because a lot of people are like, new agents, no way. Like, who wants to waste their time with new agents? But I love it because they don't know any better, you know? And a lot of agents that maybe got their license in 18, 19 and got to live through arguably the best real estate market to be a real estate agent maybe ever. I don't know when there was a better time to be a real estate agent than the last, that 21, 22, all that stuff. And so everybody is coming off of that high where new agents, they don't know any better.
they don't.
So, no,
Well,
so
think about when your first deal was 40, mine was 45. My average commission back in the day like was $3,600 a deal. I was selling like 70 houses at $3,600 a deal. Nowadays,
yeah.
you sell one house, you make 15, 20 grand. And it's interesting to watch the dynamics and a little bit of uh, coming off this high, a sense of entitlement for some, and the entitlement slapping some people in the face right now.
Yeah, it was great. Rise obviously was a ton of fun for all of us that were there, and it's so much more than just a real estate event for a lot of us because it's our family there. Like we've watched it grow, and so the meaning for me is just through the charts. Like it's like a drug. I come off of that thing like it's a drug. It makes me feel unbelievable. But one of the things is my buddy Eric Salinas was on that leaderboard. He was one of the top solo agents in the U.S. for the year, which was awesome. We started at the same brokerage, and we used to go and drive around town, and we get paid $5 a house on the pre-foreclosure list just to take pictures of the houses, and then they would compile all that and they would go buy a house at the auction. But that's where I started. I started making $5 a house, so I'd get $300 after driving around all these houses. I embraced the suck. I think that was part of the military stuff, was that when it was hard, I knew that's when we were earning our shit.
Let
We
me
were
ask
earning
you
our
this:
stuff.
if you knew now, then how hard it was going to be, would you have still done it?
Of course, but I was coming off of the Air Force special operations stuff. So I was coming from getting drowned in the pool, right? Literally getting my ass kicked every day. Being able to kick ass and get the door shut in your face and deal with all the stuff. That was great. I needed that adversity. I need friction and adversity to thrive. But I think a lot of agents right now are hitting some adversity and some friction, and they're shutting down, which to me is what's scary.
Well, and they're probably shutting down for a couple of reasons. One is they didn't prepare, right? And I've seen this mistake so many times in my career where someone starts making some success and they start spending their money on more liabilities versus assets. And they think that that's never going to stop the money coming in. And the moment that it slows down, their expenses are so high on liabilities, then I call it the slow hypoxia. It's like people start to starve from oxygen in business, which is money, slowly till they realize that they've now a bunch in debt and they don't have any assets and they're terrified of what's next. And it could really shrink a person. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, see, I knew if we just kept telling stories, I'd start to get the good stuff out of you. Because I don't really come in here with a lot of direction, but I know you got some juice to give here, and that was it right there. It's like agents spend too much money, both in their personal lives and their businesses.
I'm a pretty conservative. Like you look at money personalities, I'm a saver slash hoarder. I've always been really good at that.
Yeah.
And I even feel like and this is just because I'm a little conservative, but I feel like I even overextended this year and I'm a little bit, fuck, dude. And so as I've been making some adjustments and really addressing where some of the expenses are or investments in the business, and I can't imagine people that were not conservative because I'm conservative and I'm stressed a little bit.
Well, I think a lot of us, we need to be investors, right? We have to be investors. We cannot be building this business without investing, or else we're going to end up at the end of our careers like with nothing to show for it. So, but the thing is, I think people sometimes want to out earn or out invest their poor spending habits. When you have to fix the spending habits first. Like if you think you have an income problem, most people don't have an income problem. They have a saving problem. Then once you get the saving down, you can go make more money. But the thing is, if you just go make more money without really understanding how to save money, you just end up with what you're talking about. Like making a whole bunch of money, spending a whole bunch of money, and never getting any freedom.
Well, it boils down to a financial blueprint, right? Because even if you save, saving could put you in a bad spot. It's how you save. Right. So in once you save, are you moving that into investments or are you just setting it into your checking account? So there's a lot of dynamics to it, but overall it's just a financial blueprint. And we weren't taught that. You weren't taught that, I guarantee you, growing up. You had to learn it along the way. I wasn't taught it.
Well, I don't know about you, but I learned the pain of not having a financial blueprint when I was a kid. So growing up, financial instability was the stress in my life and family, right? Like that was the weight that I carried as a kid. And so for me, I always chased financial stability. But like you said, nobody gave me the blueprint. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are at, Colton. So like you've done a good amount of investing stuff. I know you live in that space a lot. For real estate agents in particular, what do you think that first or second move on the chessboard is for them to get started in actually building out some investments?
I think the number one for everyone is literacy. Invest in proximity and education and understanding. Invest in you. You are an asset. You're the one that puts in the time. So improve your skills, improve your value to the marketplace, and you'll naturally learn ways to generate more money in your business. So that'd be the first, in my opinion, is invest in you and your own skills. And then second would be, in my opinion, is a cash value whole life policy. And the reason why I love those so much is because it's still a very secure bucket. It allows you to put money aside. It allows you to take some money off the table and grow at a moderate 5.5%. But what it really, really does is it then allows you a giant savings account to go then to step 3 and start to move money into different assets, right?
So you're talking about infant banking.
Correct. Yeah, I'm a huge.
Yeah. All right. I may have to do a whole episode on this. But listen, real quick, I'm going to give you what my understanding of it is, and then tell me why I'm an idiot.
Sure.
And so it's essentially a life insurance policy, but it values high on the cash value. So essentially, you're putting your money into this policy, and you can just look at it as you have a death benefit, which is usually what life insurance is for, but you also have this thing that you're starting to accrue, which is essentially where you can be your own bank. Like the money's sitting there, it's gaining some 5% interest, but then when you want to go do something, you just give yourself a loan from your life insurance policy. Then you're acting as the bank in your own investments. You're just paying yourself back. And then when it is paid back, you have this money sitting there again, collecting that 5% interest. And so it seems like a good fit, from my observation, for people who may not have somewhere and may not have great deals to put their money in all the time. And that way it's sitting there getting 5%, and you go take it out.
Correct. 100%. So part of a person's portfolio has to be a percentage in cash or cash value. So there's so many positives about a cash value. One is it's completely off the table. Like it's not touchable. If you're sued, even if you're in a divorce, heaven forbid you're in a criminal investigation, which I hope that's not you, but it's protected. It's an asset that's off the table, protected, taxes, no matter what. They can't come for it. The other thing that I think makes it a really, really, really incredible blessing is you're 100% going to die one day. Like it's guaranteed. All of us are going to die. Now, we imagine this, Tim. Imagine when when your parents passed away, that you just had an extra $4 million in able to go build your business. How much advantage would you have having $4 million? Right? And so it's really the first step, in my opinion, of generational wealth. Now you have to teach your children the blueprint and the behaviors, obviously. But now when I pass away, I've got like policy on each of my kids. I got 2 policies on me, policy on my spouse. No, all that money goes back into the family trust. No matter who dies, it's all the beneficiary is always the family trust. And it just sets up for perpetuation of financial freedom for your family. In my opinion, my hallucination.
In my little bit of research on whole life and infinite banking, I never thought about the liability aspect where not only are you doing this thing, but it's protected. And I don't know, I've gotten a couple demand letters in my day. I've never had any real adverse action, but I just know that we live in such a litigious society and that real estate is such a litigious beast that I could do everything right. And at some point, somebody may come for me and my assets.
You haven't been through litigation yet?
I haven't been through like a full thing. No, I've gotten a couple demand letters and then, everything's been kind of squashed.
You need to go through just one.
No, I don't. Hard pass.
It's the absolute best thing you can do because it eliminates fear. So I've been through 3 litigations at this point, and the first one terrified me. Like I was like, but here's what I learned. 99% of the time it settles, number one. Number two is most of the time, the other person has not a leg to stand on. Lawsuits are frivolous, they're BS, and it's grown adults that can't come to an agreement. That's my opinion, right? But going through it taught me to not be afraid of litigation, to not be afraid to follow this, hey, I'm going to do what's right based on principles. And anyways, I think everyone should go through at least one litigation.
I love that. I think when I was knocking on doors and doing more of that business, like I'm in the transaction a lot more, that's where you're just really open to, oh, you said this or they said that, or, that's where people are really at risk a lot. I hope that where I'm at now and how we're building the business now, I should be pretty far outside of a lot of that risk for litigation. But I will say this.
Oh, go ahead.
Like I go into deals a lot. I invest in other people's deals a lot now. And I do like investing with one of my buddies in particular who I'll have on the podcast. And I'll invest in hairy deals with him, stuff that is not straightforward, stuff that's a little messy, because I know how much he's been through. And the thing is, it's like I'm a boxer. And so I can train you, Colton, to box. I can have you watch all the YouTube videos. I can have you train. I can have you do the thing. But very well, like if you had to go to fight with somebody, you'd want to fight with someone who's been in the ring before, And so that's the thing. Like, you're right. I can talk about litigation. I can talk about liability. But man, if you've been through one of those, if you've been through 2 of them, if you've been through 3 of them, you just got way better perspective on dealing with the stuff and how to fight moving forward.
When some of these litigations have, like, I'll give you an example with one of mine. Just pissed me off. So there's a kid that used to work for me, and his dad was a contractor. And his dad had done a bid on this house, did a bunch. Anyways, they did work on it. Turned out shitty, and they didn't like it, and they sued the guy. My company got wrapped into the lawsuit. We had nothing to do with it because this kid that worked for me, his dad asked him to go take pictures of the property. So when he went over to take pictures of the property, he had a WGR shirt on. And then I didn't know this, but he used my digital signature. What was it? DocuSign.
Yeah.
It was called the WGR.eSign or something like that. So my company was wrapped into the damn litigation for $300,000. I'd never even met these people before. But that was
Yeah.
my third litigation, so it was easy for me to squash because I knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. I knew exactly what the process was. And I remember talking with my attorney. I was like, okay, what are my options here? Because part of me is like, on principle, I just want to countersue these guys for being
Yeah.
assholes, right? And he's like, well, you could do that. It's probably just going to cost you closer to 15 to 20 grand. Or I can call and offer him 2 to 3 grand and you can settle and be done with it. I was like, these motherfuckers, they're going to get 2 or 3 grand out of me for nothing. Anyways, I did settle with them for 2 to 3 grand, but after I've been through the process enough, what I identified for me is, okay, how can I get the headache out of my life as quick as possible so that I don't have to deal with the time, the effort, and the energy through it?
Yeah, I think that's the standpoint when you come to this stuff. And I want to tie back to the audience because I do think at some point you're going to probably get a demand letter. You're going to get some threat of litigation, lawsuit. And if you don't, it's probably just because you haven't done enough deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, you could be as by the book as you want. You could do everything right. It doesn't matter. At some point, you're probably going to run into somebody that does that or threatens that. I mean, how many times have we had somebody say, oh, well, I'm going to call a lawyer. And what do? We were like, oh, we get all defensive and we all do all the things. A couple of things of what you just said. Obviously, it's always best to write the check and move on as quickly as possible. Because the litigation that costs a ton of money is long, time.
When the real money is opportunity cost. Because if my attention is even attached to that, it's not I can't attend to other things mentally. And so I'm stealing opportunity from you, really.
But the other thing, though, the flip side of that coin, I think, is that you also can't be afraid to fight, because if you've got too much fear around it, you're gonna negotiate yourself a crappy deal.
Right.
And so you've got to know where you're at and try to remove the emotions from the situation.
100%.
Take a very honest look at it, and it's like, okay, Jeff wants to sue me. If he could take $2 grand and walk, like, fine. But if he really wants to stick it out, like, I've got the war chest. I will take him to the cleaners and we will fight this thing, right? Like, you got to be able to know kind of where you're at so you can make educated, non-emotional decisions.
Is the fight worth it, right? That's what I think a good question is the fight worth it for sure?
Winning, right? I thought we win in everything we do.
Well, not according to Alex Hormozy. It's not about winning. It's about outlasting, right?
That is true. Oh, man. Do you want to talk about that? What'd you think about the Hormozy talk?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, both him and Layla were super great. I was super grateful I was able to ask such a personal question to Layla. And I think overall, like, it was the message for me was, this is what hard is like. And this is part of it. Most people, and me included, were unclear of what the hard was going to be before I committed to decisions in my life, whether that's being a father, whether that's being a romantic partner, or whether that's being a business owner, being an investor, right? There's hards that come with it. And the question is can you last through the hard? This is a great message for me.
Yeah, when he came up and was like, hey, you guys already know what you're doing. You just need to do it. And I was like, man, like, that's cool. But I've heard that a million times. But then when he really slapped me in the face with all the things in his talk, it was the best, most impactful yet simple talk I think I've heard.
Yeah. There's one thing he's good at is keeping it very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, he conveys complicated messages in a very simple and easy to digest way. And I don't know about you, but when he said, I think he essentially said, what does loser you look like, and reverse engineer winning by defining what loser you does, I'm like, man, I've got a bunch of stuff in my head that loser Tim does. I can make that list real quick and then figure out how to make winning Tim.
Yep. I liked it. It was a really good meeting.
What'd you have on your list?
What do you mean on my list for I'm lost?
Yeah, so when you walk through that,
for me?
Yeah, because I'm like, look,
I was the guy. Remember, I was the guy that yelled out drugs, right? Like,
yeah.
When he started talking about heroin, that was me that started that. But like, that is the loser me. The loser me is using drugs. I mean, the only reason I know that is because I've been to that version of it, and I don't prefer it. But yeah, that was definitely on my list.
But it was such a different way to look at it, because so many times I want to look at how do I hit the gas. Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, I think there in our business and in our lives, there's gas, there's gas and there's brakes, mm-hmm. Like there's things that slow us down and there's things that speed us up. And all we do is focus on the things that speed us up. And a lot of times we don't go fix the things that slow us down.
Yeah.
And for me, realized I'm like, holy shit, forget trying to figure out all this new stuff I need to do, all this new stuff I need to add. If I could just fix the things that slow me down, I'd probably be pretty damn good, you know? And that perspective change for me was a big one.
I like his definition of patience in finding something else to attend to while you're waiting, basically. I
Yeah.
think, excuse me, I think oftentimes I talk about being calm and patient often, but like there's still going to be this slight something in the back of me at times, like, oh, I should be doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that play out for you?
Um,
How does being a calm and patient win for you in life?
well, I'll tell you this is, and I say dumber stuff when I'm more calm and patient. I mean, less dumb stuff. I say more dumb stuff when I'm less patient, right? When I'm less
Yeah.
calm, when my emotions get in the way. Here's how I've really created patience for me is through meditation, in defining meditation too. And I've defined it as the repetitive practice of letting go of fear. When I look at how impatience affects me in my life, it's typically because I'm afraid of some type of pain that's going to come from not getting a sense of completion or a sense of arrival. And so just being okay through the journey and letting go of the fear that creeps into my brain. It's really a conversation and a hallucination up here. So that's for me, it's just letting go of fear repetitively.
Well, and I love what you said too about saying dumb things, because I think in our work, you know me, I say dumb things all the time. That's why I have a podcast, so I can say dumb things. We have this fear of silence, this uncomfortableness with silence, and we feel like we need to fill it always.
Mm.
And so we just say things to fill the silence. But getting comfortable in silence and having someone say something or ask you a question and you immediately are going to respond, and instead taking one moment to stop and have a better answer than the one that first comes to your head, that's a superpower for me.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's part of emotional state management. When you look at whether it's investing, growing a business, or even being in a relationship with a spouse, and it's letting the emotions settle before creating an action. And like it's really a real.
Yeah. Well, tell me this. I think a lot of us listen to someone, and then while we're listening to them, we're thinking of our rebuttal. Like you're talking about a spouse, you're talking about a client, you're talking about, right? Like we spend the time listening to them formulating the rebuttal in our head instead of forming the question to keep going deeper with them. Because that's what I think happens with our, let's just use the spouse example. I think it's a good one, but we're in a relationship with somebody and we have a tough conversation. So many times in those conversations while they're talking, we're thinking about a rebuttal instead of actually taking the time to try to understand them, instead of trying to think of maybe a good question to ask them to maybe go a little bit deeper. It's the same thing we should be doing with our clients.
Well, and really what you're saying is just being curious with them. And that
It's my
comes back
favorite
to
word.
patience versus impatience, right? I wonder how many times was I quick to want to rebuttal, whether let's just say it's handling an objection with a seller or debating an argument with my spouse, is I wanted to arrive at a certain point and being okay with the point that I'm currently at versus arrival. That
Yeah, and I think what we try to push people to the point that we want to get to. Like
I do for sure.
right? You know where we want this to go. I know where we want this to go. And when we try to push people to where we want to get them, what happens?
Well, it's obvious my way is the best way to get there too. So I can't figure out more people don't understand that.
Oh man. No, it is funny. It's like this idea that we can dance with people in a conversation to get them where we want to go instead of just telling them where we want to go is something I've been working through a lot lately. But let's dig in. Let's dig in. I think we've talked about some fun stuff, but we're coming into what Tamir has said should be a slightly better year, but still a very difficult year ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
What are the top 2-3 things that you're telling agents they should be taking action on right now to keep their pipeline full and close more deals in 24?
Well, the first thing I'm telling everyone is to tell a compelling story of the future. Because how you view the future will dictate the emotions that you experience, and the emotions will dictate the actions you do or don't take. And so, like that's one thing I'm obsessed with right now is what is the compelling story of my future 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and seeing what that looks like and understanding between here and there is going to be hard. There's going to be some hard times. There's going to be some easy times, some fun times, some shitty times, but seeing the compelling future and following up with what's important about that. What's important about the increase in my rev share? What's important about in increase in agent productivity in my network? What's important about, and then when I can look at that, that's step one. But number two, everything boils down to three fundamentals in business: marketing, sales, and fulfillment. And so I'm really just helping people understand, okay, who is my target? Who is my target customer? Who do I want to work with? Who do I want to spend time, effort, and energy with? And then once I know that, I'm telling everyone to go through and do market research. What are the needs, the wants, the loves, the hates of these people right now about the market, about business, about what's going on? And then create content around that. Create your marketing around that. Create your conversations around that. And then everything boils down on my fourth piece that I'm really talking about, which is the sales. Boils down to conversations, dude. Like, are we having 30 plus conversations a day? Are we having more conversations with more people, and hopefully our target person? Are we having more conversations with them? And if we are, you're going to put deals together. You're going to make money happen.
I like that you said that about the mindset and about the attitude. This isn't the topic that we're on, but I talk to agents all the time that want to bring more agents to Real. They want to make more rev share. And they say a lot of the same things to me. They're like, I can't get anybody to join with me. Like, I can't get, and I'm like, of course you can't. When you have that mindset, like, you're not going to get anywhere. You're already starting off in the wrong spot. And so I think that we have to be positive and optimistic. Like, our sphere is going to reach out to someone who is positive and optimistic.
Yes.
If you are negative about real estate, and I'm not saying to not be truthful, like, you can be truthful and transparent with still being optimistic, and positive, but they're not going to reach out to negative people for help in their real estate, what they want to accomplish in real estate. And so that's like an overlooked thing. Like, have more conversations. We're always talking about having more conversations, but I don't think we talk about enough what mindset to bring to those conversations so they're more effective.
Well, that's the energy is extremely attractive. People want authenticity. They want a positive future. And right now we have such a bleak, especially if you look on the way mainstream media is, or even a lot of people talking about the market. There's a really bleak future with what's going on. But at the same time, we actually have a pretty incredible future. Like I'm getting ready for ski season because I freaking love to ski. And one thing you have to do if you have kids is you have to buy new ski crap every year because they freaking grow, right? So I was ordering some new long underwear for my daughters, and I was at the soccer game Saturday. By 3:00 in the afternoon, that shit showed up on my front porch. Like, we live in a world that is so simple to get things. We can click it on our phone and it comes in just a few hours. And so there's so much greatness to look at in the future. And I think 2024, you know what's great? It's an election year. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Biden administration, but I am a huge fan of what happens in election year. And usually the administration wants to get reelected. So they're going to put some pressure on the feds in hopes to get that rate down. I'm really positive to what Rocket Mortgage had to say. They're predicting a 4.1% rate by the end of 2024. That's freaking awesome, in my opinion. I look forward to the fact that rates are when they come down, there's a pent-up demand of people on the sidelines looking to buy. So what I do right now, fundamentally, whether it's second quarter or third quarter that the rates start to come down, doesn't matter. If I can focus now on the fundamentals, marketing, sales, fulfillment, there's a huge opportunity for 2024.
It's funny. I got out of the Air Force coming from some pretty rough training stuff that I did in my last couple of years there. And, I came out like disgruntled. And when I first heard this positive energy manifestation, I was like, this is a load of crap. Like, I had zero belief in any of it. It's just funny looking back at how much of my life and how much of my business has been so positively impacted by coming at things with this mentality. It's like, if you think the world is against you, it surely will be.
Yeah.
If you think the world is for you, It surely will be. And like you said, we live in an amazing time. It is an amazing time to be a human on this planet. It is an amazing time to build this business. It's also a crappy time. So however you view it is what you'll get.
Yeah. I think we have to be realistic in the seasons of humanity right now. But also, I'm a believer of the spirit of humanity. I believe genuinely most people that are listening to this podcast, there might be a couple psychos, most people are genuinely good people at their core. And I believe a lot of people want similar things. They want prosperity. They want connection. They want happiness. They want a sense of unity. And I believe that, okay, maybe we've got a bunch of disconnection right now in the world, but it's not permanent. It's temporary. It might not feel like it at times. Yeah, rates are high. It's not permanent. We know that historically rates, they change. They're like, that's a guarantee. So I always like to look at, okay, what's the blessing now and what's the opportunity? And goes back to how often are you, if you're listening to this, how often are you telling yourself the compelling story of the future? Having yourself recite, this is the compelling story of my business, of my money, of my relationship, of my body, of my health, of my family. And that doesn't mean it's all going to go according to plan, because you're going to have some tunnels along the way. But no matter what, it feels better. Definitely feels better with a compelling future.
Well, I do want to clarify. We likely do have some psychos that are listening to the podcast. I attract that into my life. I assume I attract it to my podcast. I was talking about new agents and how new agents don't know any better. And what's interesting to me is that there are going to be pretty good agents. There's going to be pretty good agents that get out of the business, that don't put the pieces together and they don't figure out how to get through this market. There's going to be brand new agents that come in right now at this time and build a massive, huge, amazing business because they go out and they take advantage of the opportunity. They don't see the challenge as challenge. They see it as opportunity, and they're going to go do all the things that the other agent isn't going to do. And so I just love how much of the mindset really drives how you take the actions, whether you take the actions, and then that is what really drives the success or not. So like if you're an agent that's on the fence, which is who I have my heart for, like I know what this business can do for people, not just agents, but for consumers, right, who need great agents to take care of them. If you're an agent on the fence right now who feels like maybe I can't get through this market, it's like, look, there's a new agent entering the business right now that's going to crush it. And my question is, why isn't that you?
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you that agent that's going to crush it?
You know who I think has the best opportunity in this market are real estate agents between the age of 25 and 35. And because they got a positive outlook towards the future of their life. They've got some hustle.
I could talk about this. Keep going.
Plus, I think anyone that had a chance to grow up in the 90s at any level, they just adapt really easily to technology, but they're also just old enough to not just have that, but also remember work ethic. They really have this ability to put in the work that is required, plus the adaptability and the flexibility of their mind to understand technology. So if you're 25 to 35, you've, in my opinion, for what it's worth, you got the best opportunity in business and real estate right now.
Well, I feel like you targeted me a little bit there because I'm 36. So you put me right outside that number, and it hit home for me because it's a little bit true. Like I've built my business by being the social media and marketing guy because I really understand how audiences interact with social media and how to attract and build an audience and do all that fun stuff. And what's funny to me is I just meet some great agents, some really great agents that are a little bit older, but they don't understand how to build an audience. They don't understand how social media works because they didn't grow up with, they're not native to it. And what's funny is at 36, I like that number you did, 25 to 35. I am at a point where I start seeing some of this stuff and I'm like, how does that, like, I am a little bit out of the loop on some of the new stuff. And so I totally agree. A younger agent knows how, like, has that youngness to work harder, but also they just get the way social media and marketing works at a higher level.
So here's why I say 35 is the cutoff. I'm 39 and I know how to build a community. I've done really well at it. But the reality is, and it's not that I'm lazy. I don't want to say that, but I am in a different phase of my life where I don't want to do the work that I once did.
Yep.
And so you start to hit 36 and you're probably starting to feel it as much as you've traveled, speaking and training and doing things. is like I don't want to have to expand the energy that I once did. So I'm learning, and I think you're probably obviously learning too, is be more effective and more efficient in what you do. And when you're 25 to 35, you don't have to be as efficient. You just have to be effective, and you'll learn how to be efficient with time. But you get older, you got to be efficient. If you're older than us and you haven't learned how to be efficient today in today's economy, in today's technology, you're really screwed because you don't have the energy to learn it. Either I'm not saying you're
Well,
screwed, but it's going to be more difficult.
yeah, I think the numbers say you're screwed, but I do have a lot of older agents, and I say older, I mean just like older than me, that have cracked the code on like YouTube and have done some of this stuff. And what is fun for my older people listening, I see you, is that when you talk about building an audience, they have a little bit of an unfair advantage in that there's hardly anybody their demographic making
For
the
sure.
content.
It's not
And so
impossible for sure. It's definitely doable if you choose to.
but the thing is, it's like I'm 36. I'm not 55. And a lot of homeowners are 55. And a lot of homeowners are on social media. And I can make a video about, the pros and cons of living in San Antonio, and they'll watch it. But if they had someone that was their age making a video, they would probably watch it more. And there's less people in the older demographics making content, which means whenever there's less people producing and there's more consuming, that's an opportunity to be a producer of content. And there's a massive opportunity there. Or if you go to that younger demographic, that 25 to 35, everybody's making content that's 25 to 35. And so you've got a unique advantage if you are on the older side. So
especially if you
I don't want to discourage you. I want to encourage you.
especially if you master Facebook, right? Like if you're 50 to 70 and you can master Facebook social, I mean, that age group, my mom is part of that age group. She loves Facebook,
All over it.
all
Yeah.
over that. And so if you can create engaging content that stays engaged with that and your positive outlook and you're kind, you'll be the go-to source when it comes.
Colton, I think one of the biggest things, because we've been a little bit all over the place on our interview, but I've enjoyed it. Like I like going all over the place. My favorite way to have conversations. But I will say, for agents, I feel like there's a lot of things for them floating out there, like make a YouTube channel, do expireds, follow up your sphere. Like, how do you recommend people don't get distracted? How do you prioritize? How do you stay focused? Because I know that a focused agent is unstoppable.
Yeah.
But we all get distracted.
I have two meetings that I do consistently. One is on a daily basis. I call it a smart day or a CEO meeting with myself. And basically it's a 20 to 30-minute meeting where I get clear on the next 24 hours of my life. Part of my life involves being a parent, involves being a spouse, a business owner, involves taking care of my body. And so I get clear on what my top 3 to 5 outcomes are every single day. And my outcomes don't just revolve around money, although I'm a bit focused on that because I really enjoy business. But that's the first thing, 20 to 30-minute meeting with myself to get clear on the next 24 hours. And then the second thing, I tell people I get paid to think. And in this fast-paced world that we live in, how often do people feel like they don't have time to sit back and think because they're always moving on to one thing after the next? So I make sure at least 3 times a week, it's just me, my pen, and 60 minutes in my journal, asking myself questions just so I can see what my fucking thoughts are and see what's going on and see which is mashed potatoes and which it makes sense. Every time I have a think time, I would come up with at least 2 or 3 actions from those think times. And I just act on those 2 or 3 things.
I love that. Rafe is my guy on here who bugs me to do all the things I'm supposed to do. And when I was over in Switzerland and France and all this other fun stuff this summer, I was pumping out email newsletters and like posts and content, just writing my thoughts out about all these different things. And it's funny because I've had trouble finding that same rhythm being home. And it's probably because I haven't been intentional about it. Like I haven't been intentional about blocking time and a space. I think that's important too, is like having a good environment to have those thoughts as well.
And I think for me, am I writing for myself or am I writing for others? Because the moment that I'm writing for others it becomes a little bit of a significance thing for me. Now, I'm not saying that I don't share things that I write for myself, but it's more crystallized for me when I write for myself. The message is more powerful in my experience when I write for myself.
Yeah, I think the messages we write for ourselves are probably many times even more impactful for everyone else.
Sure.
I think like when we really focus in on ourself and our problems and our solutions and our story, we reach a whole bunch of people that have similar problems, similar stories, similar goals. And then, in our world, right, we're all about, community building and connection and all that fun stuff. And that's how you connect with
Yep.
people.
Hands down.
All right. Favorite quote. What do you got?
Ooh. Man, I got a lot of favorite quotes, but I think my favorite is the quality of our life is directly proportionate to the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. And
Yeah.
so that comes from Tony, my guy Tony
Yeah.
Robbins. And so I just think about it all the time. What quality questions am I asking myself?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You know what, man? I really love that. I talk all the time about what questions are you asking. It's the most powerful thing. It's so much more powerful than the things you come up with, right? Like the questions are so much more powerful than the answers. So I love that. All right. Best place for people to connect with you.
Instagram, and my user handle is at the WGR, WGR, the WGR.
Man. The WGR. All right, look, one thing you want to leave people with. What do you got? What do you want to tell people?
So there's the question I've been asked before is like, if you go back to your younger self and give advice, what would it be? And the advice I would give myself to my younger self would be that everything turns out okay. So no matter where you're at right now, like everything is going to be okay. That doesn't mean it's not going to be a bumpy ride, but you're going to be okay. That'd be the thing I'd leave with you.
I love that. The things are never as bad as they seem in our head, and they're never as good as they seem on social media.
They're never as good as they seem on social media.
Well, Colton, I appreciate you being on. And hey, for those of you listening, I appreciate you listening, and we'll see you on the next one.